So this is Jeff Marshall. He's the CEO of Marshall Media, or president of Marshall Media. And so just gonna ask him a few questions today. He's agreed to meet with me and kind of help me out on this project. So Jeff, if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and Marshall Media as a whole.
Well, I have a degree in communications and Bible, actually. Graduated in 1984. I have worked for...
Those go hand in hand.
Yeah. Worked in network television. I've worked in corporate media. I've worked on the agency side, and now I've owned and operated a business. So I've kind of been a part of all different aspects of media.
For those other pieces, like when you worked for the network and those jobs you had, what did you do with them? Or like, what was your role there?
In network television, I worked in videotape operations and as a video editor.
Okay.
So, and then when I came to work in corporate media at Hardee's, I was a producer, director of video programs and events.
Okay.
That's where I got into the event side of things, working at Hardee's, about midway in my time with Hardee's. And then for the agency, it was also events and media.
Okay. So you worked directly for Hardee's, or the
I worked for the
Carl
company,
Jr.'s?
yes.
Okay. For the for Body and Knoll, or
No.
for Hardee's?
Body Knoll's a franchisee. I worked for Hardee's Food Systems, but then towards the end of my career at Hardee's, they were purchased by CKU Restaurants, which owns Carl's Jr.
Okay, gotcha. All right. All right. So as far as Marshall Media goes, are you guys more of a marketing company or just a media company? I know there's probably not a whole lot of difference, but if you
really not a marketing company.
Okay.
I mean, we're a media production company, kind of running as a small agency, I guess.
Okay.
We do marketing for other companies. We do, different types of media and events in production. It may be marketing, it may be human resource driven, it may be training, whatever. It could be for research. So we don't do marketing per se.
Gotcha. So whenever you and I talked the first time on the phone, you told me your role was, if I were to find it online, would be an executive producer, right? So I kind of looked that up a little bit, and it kind of seemed like a jack of all trades. It just seemed like you did a lot with maybe like some of the money and events and video and a little bit of marketing, like you were saying, but not a whole lot. So kind of, if you wouldn't mind giving a little bit deeper explanation, because the website and all the websites the different ones I read just kind of sounded like it was open-ended. It was, whatever you needed to do, you had to do.
Yeah. And so I guess the title executive producer, like a lot of titles, can be defined in a lot of different ways. If you see executive producer on, a major motion film,
right.
It's going to be the person that had all the money and made all the final decisions.
Right.
They maybe weren't involved day to day in the film, but they got their name on there because they were the executive producer.
A lot of money in there.
My role as executive producer is, because I don't do huge motion pictures, is more on a much smaller scale where I am involved day to day. Best way I've been able to explain what I do to someone that doesn't know my business is comparing my role to like a general contractor that builds houses. He doesn't have a big fancy office, and he doesn't have a lot of people on his payroll.
This is a pretty nice office, considering my wondering.
It's in my garage, just so you know.
Pretty nice home office, though.
It's a third of my garage. And so, the general contractor doesn't have plumbers and electricians and roofers on his payroll. He brings them in as subcontractors to do a job for him. His role is to sell the plans of a beautiful house to someone and keep everything on budget, on time, do it creatively, make the customer happy at the end of the day. My role is very similar. I don't hire plumbers and roofers. I have video engineers and lighting directors and graphics designers that work for me. I'm responsible for all of it. If there's any problem with any of it, they come to me. Just like as a contractor, you'd go to your general contractor, not your roofer. You'd say, hey, you get this fixed. Same way. Now, I just like your general contractor is not a specialist in plumbing or roofing, he knows enough about it to get it done. I'm kind of that way. You know, I do have a specialty in video, and I can do some high-level video production, but when it comes to, you know, audio engineering and lighting directing, I just hire people that do that well.
Okay. So it's kind of like, and for people who are listening, this morning Jeff and I went and mentored at Red Oak Middle, and we talked about initiative. And so kind of initiative is like going and putting yourself out there and taking risks, sort of. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying here is, like, you may not do all the work, but you're the one responsible for hiring. And so in that, like, you kind of take that initiative of the risk on.
There's a lot of risk.
Right, yeah. Because I mean, like, even if you hire someone bad, it's still on you for hiring that bad person.
And you can have that whether they're a subcontractor or an employee.
Right.
But, yeah.
But that's part of being like the boss.
It is,
yeah. So that's cool. So you, on that topic, do you, like, how thoroughly do you examine the people who you contract out? Or how do you even find those people?
Well, it's a network. I mean, it's really relationships built over time. Finding people that you trust that are good in the business. I've, you know, gone through a lot of people in my career, contractors that, you know, you hire, and I mean, I have the fellow that I was just on the phone with when you walked in. I first worked with him. He was assigned to work with me back in 1998 when I worked for the Jack Morton Company, an agency, and I needed a graphics designer. He's still doing work for me today, and I pay him enough money to have him on salary probably in a year's time, but I just hire him for projects when I need him. I have him on 3 different projects right now because he's really good.
You for that.
He's really good, and he just does great work, and so I can trust him. Now, when it comes to the key roles, you know, people that I need to represent my company in front of the customer, I'm very, very picky about who I choose to work for me there.
That makes sense.
There are a lot of people that work for me that, you know, I'll hire local labor to come in and load in the truck and set up some basic equipment. And I have some of those that I built relationships with in different cities around the world that I'll call specifically. A lot of times it's just I call an agency and I say I need 5 local audiovisual technicians to load in the show, and you get who you get. But my customer's never going to interact with
that person,
So now if they're not good, I'll make sure and say next time don't send me Joe Smith because he's a lousy worker. But anyway, I'm very picky about the key people.
Right, people who actually interact with the people you're working with. Okay. Now, you said right there that you, like, around the world. I know a little bit about, like, I know you go to, like, you've been to California and been to other countries. Like, can you give me just a little, like, places you've gone? And do you like working around the world?
Yeah, we end up doing things around the world. It's a global economy, it truly is. And so we do events around the world, you know, if it calls for that, if we're asked to produce events in different, you know, cities around the world. We've worked in most major cities, well, many major cities around the world. I don't say most, but many major cities around the world. And have,
that's pretty cool.
And have developed relationships with people, you know, around the world that we can call on. You know, if you ask me to do a program in Russia or in Buenos Aires or Hong Kong or whatever, I've got people I've worked with before that I would call on to say, hey, I need you. I've got to send an email today to a company in Berlin for a project we have coming up next month that I need to contract them for. So we've done events and video around the world, you know, so it just depends on what we're doing. And I enjoy it. The travel gets a bit
extensive of it, but
it can be, you know, very taxing on me, but as long as it's not too much at once.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's pretty cool because I feel like a lot of people my age. Now I'm not as big on traveling globally and stuff because I did that a little bit when I was younger. But I feel like a lot of people nowadays they spend a lot of their money even to vacation overseas or, you know, go see something. It's like you started a company which allows you to be able to do those things somewhat. Now, I know you're working when you're there a lot of the time,
Yeah.
but there's the opportunity somewhat for you to maybe stick around for an extra couple of days. And
Occasionally there is.
Go see
Yeah,
things,
that
yeah.
has been nice.
Yeah. All right, I'll get back on my questions now.
Okay.
Okay, so you worked for other companies and you know, were a job person, but now what made you want to become an entrepreneur and start your own company? What made you want to start Marshall Media?
Yeah, I guess a number of different things went into that. I did have one person. Sometimes it just takes one person to really, kind of, encourage you in that way. There was another business owner, a meeting planning company in Raleigh. Her name's Kathy Truelove. She owned a company called Universal Meeting Management. She had a contract with Hardee's, and we did a number of projects together, some very large projects with Hardee's. And when you work with a meeting planning company, in my role, you work very, very tightly with them. I mean, it's a very close relationship. Your jobs kind of really intersect, and you have to really rely on one another. And so she started really encouraging me to start my business.
Okay.
And I wasn't ready for it when she started telling me that. And then I went to work for the agency, the Jack Morton Company. While I was there, I hated the commute into downtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I started seeing that there were other executive producers that were freelance executive producers that would come in, and they'd be assigned projects just like I was, but they were working out of their home.
Yeah.
I'm like, you do what I do and you work from home, you don't have to make this awful commute every day. That's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, that's pretty
and,
nice.
And that was back in the late 90s when not too many people were telecommuting. I mean, it was kind of still not a real big deal like it is now. And so when I left Jack Morton and actually went back to Hardee's for a short while, Kathy, she called me one night and said, I have an opportunity for you to bid on a series of meetings with GlaxoSmithKline, who is a big customer of hers.
That's a pharmaceutical company,
Yeah,
right?
pharmaceutical company, second largest in the world.
Yeah.
And she said, I'd love for you to be able to bid on this, and I'll get you in front of my client. And so I did, won the job, and that kind of started me. And I did that for a year, actually, while I was still at Hardee's. Told my boss what I was doing. It was really weekend projects.
Right.
And after doing that for a year, they asked me to do a project with $1 million budget. And I told my wife, I said, I can't do this part-time anymore.
Yeah.
I've got to start this business and do it. So that's kind of how it started.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially having such a big project that early on within a year.
Yeah.
All right. So this is another